It was late afternoon when the message came. I was sitting on the train, watching the Connecticut trees blur past in shades of amber and rust, holding a gift bag with a bottle of my father's favorite scotch inside. That's when my phone buzzed. "It's best if you don't come tonight. It'll be simpler for everyone." No greeting, no signature. But I didn't need one. My mother's voice was etched between every word, cold, clipped, efficient. I read it 3 times, then once more, just to be sure I wasn't imagining the cruelty in its simplicity. My hands didn't shake. My face didn't flush. I just went still. Like a house where the power had suddenly gone out. I'd spent years of my life and most of my savings restoring the Vale estate. Oversaw every inch of the design, kept the original banisters, reinforced the roof, replaced the wiring they never thanked me for. That dinner tonight? The one celebrating 45 years of their marriage. It was happening inside a house I practically rebuilt from the ground up. You know you've become invisible when silence replaces explanation. And I wasn't just invisible. I was erased. I didn't reply. Didn't turn back. The train kept moving, but the landscape outside no longer looked familiar. Later that evening, I drove past the estate. Slowly. Headlights off. My tires made no sound on the long gravel drive, but my heart did, a deep, steady thud. The place was glowing. Lanterns along the pathway, music floating through the trees, and cars, so many cars, lined up all the way to the road. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of her, Seraphine, gold dress, hair done up in waves. She stood at the front door like she owned the place, one hand resting lightly on our mother's arm, the other shaking hands with guests. Not jealousy, no, not that. What I felt was something colder. Erasure. I built that house brick by brick, and they locked me out of it. For a moment, I considered pulling into the drive, just to remind them I existed, just to see their faces when I stepped out of the car. But I didn't. Not because I couldn't. Because I wouldn't. Some dinners aren't meant for the ones who paid the bill. I parked beneath a row of old maple trees, not far from the east wing I designed to hold winter light just right. From there, I could see everything. But they couldn't see me. I opened my phone. Social media was already flooded. Cousins, family friends, even my old piano teacher posted photos from inside. One caught my breath. Seraphine, standing with our parents under a banner that read, "Vale Family Legacy." My father's caption beneath it, "Proud of the one who keeps our name shining." I said nothing out loud, but inside I screamed, "The one who keeps your name shining." I kept the lights on. She hadn't paid a dime, not during the renovations, not when the taxes nearly drowned us. That was me. That was always me. I closed the app. The wind moved through the trees, and for a moment, I let the silence settle in. But it didn't feel empty. It felt focused. Years ago, when our father almost lost the house, he came to me. I was the only one with a good enough credit score, enough savings. I signed the mortgage documents in my name, not because I had to, because I believed I was saving something worth preserving. Now I wondered if they even remembered. Families don't always break from hatred. Sometimes they rot from entitlement. I opened my messages and typed, "Did they even mention me?" It was for Tamsin, my cousin. She was the only one in that house who ever asked how I was doing without needing gossip as a reason. Her reply came slower than expected. "It's better if you don't see the video." There it was again, the careful omission, the soft betrayal. All right then. I started the car, engine quiet like my resolve. "I'll let the truth eat with them next time," I muttered, eyes fixed on the house in the distance. No more quiet benefactor. No more ghost in the family photo. By the time I got back to Boston, it was well past midnight. The city was quiet, still licking its wounds from Saturday bar crawls and early football losses. I sat at my desk, the bottle of scotch still unopened. Next to it, papers proving the deed to the estate was still in my name. Not Seraphine's, not theirs, mine. My laptop pinged. Group message. Vale family chat. I hadn't muted it. Maybe a part of me wanted to see what they'd say. My father's message. "Thank you all for tonight. Family above all." A heart emoji from Mom. Then Seraphine posted a photo. Same banner, same dress. Caption: The rightful host. I stared at it, then typed one word. Understood. Sometimes, silence is the loudest announcement of war. The call came just after sunset while I was rinsing a dish in the sink. The night was quiet, no television, no music, just the soft hum of the fridge and the occasional creak from the radiator. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me said, "Answer it." "Miss Vale?" The voice was clear, deep, and carried an old-school confidence. "This is Edward Carraway. I work with your father." I set the dish down and wiped my hands on a towel. "Yes, I know who you are." He didn't waste time. "I was disappointed not to see you at the anniversary dinner. Your father spoke highly of you. I expected to meet the woman who saved the estate." That word, saved, felt sharp coming from someone outside the family. "I wasn't invited," I said. He paused. "That's unfortunate. I've arranged a private dinner at the house tomorrow evening. Just a few of us. I'd appreciate your presence. You are, after all, the backbone of that home, aren't you?" His tone wasn't flattering. It was factual. I agreed, not to feel seen, not to belong, but because I needed to know who still saw me. This wasn't an invitation, it was a test. The next evening, I drove the familiar road back toward the estate. The trees were darker now, stripped of the gold they wore yesterday. The air had turned colder too, sharper. As I pulled into the long drive, the house appeared slowly, grand as ever, its windows glowing warm. But the warmth didn't reach me. Rowena stood at the door. She didn't smile. "Your presence was not approved," she said. "But you're here now." I walked past her without a word. Inside, the house looked pristine, like it had been staged. Then came Seraphine. "You must have made quite the impression on Carraway," she said, teeth gleaming behind a rehearsed smile. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a reaction. You can't spar with people who rely on mirrors for reality. The dining room hadn't changed since I designed it. Still open to the garden, with that heavy oak table none of them liked, until Carraway complimented it years ago. He arrived a few minutes later, polished suit, tailored voice. "Madeleine," he said warmly, "finally." We shook hands, and I saw it. He remembered details, the restoration plan, the permits, even the time I had the basement redone to fix structural faults no one else noticed. Dinner began. He spoke often, praising my choices, my work, my foresight. Seraphine laughed too loud. Rowena poured wine too quickly. My father nodded but never met my eyes. Then it landed. "I was just telling my board," Carraway said between bites, "any family that owns legacy property needs someone like Madeleine. Backbone, not flash." They didn't expect that. Suddenly, everything felt staged. The food, the compliments, the family. They hadn't invited me, he had, and they'd scrambled to play gracious hosts. They didn't need me here. They needed what I symbolized: sacrifice. Legitimacy. Clean optics. I smiled and kept eating. Midway through dessert, Carraway shifted the conversation. "Estate law's tricky," he said, "especially when title deeds don't match public records. Always interesting to see who really owns what." My father stiffened. My mother changed the topic. Seraphine forced a laugh so brittle I could hear it crack. I didn't say a word. Let it simmer. Control tastes sweeter when they don't know they've lost it. Carraway raised his glass. "To the real architect of this home." Everyone lifted their glasses. I met his eyes, steady. "Some foundations take longer to crack," I said, "but they always do." After dinner, I walked the hallway that led to the library. The walls had been painted over, a new shade I never would have picked. In the hallway display, a new family photo had been hung. Seraphine was at the center. I wasn't in it. I stood there longer than I meant to, not out of sadness. Strategy. Tonight, I was a guest in the house I made a home. That ends soon. I opened the cabinet in the hallway. Third drawer down, exactly where I'd left it. A thick binder, dust-covered, labeled Property Trusts, 2013. I tucked it under my arm and walked out into the night. I couldn't sleep. After Carraway's words haunted me, You're the backbone of that house. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the echo. The late hour swallowed my courage, but not my suspicion. I opened the binder I'd taken from the hallway. Property Trusts, 2013. I flipped slowly, page by page, watching printed names shift. Some pages were crisp, new-looking. The ink tone changed between signatures. Fonts didn't match. Lines didn't align. I stared at my father's name, printed, not scrawled. That wasn't his handwriting. It struck me. I had never truly known how deeply they planned this. Betrayal never comes from enemies. It's a family specialty. My pulse steadied. I wasn't shocked anymore. I was aware. I called Orion Chase. His voicemail message when he picked up in the dead of night. You wouldn't call me this late unless the truth's bleeding. He met me at his office soon after. We pored over every page under dim overhead lights and a single lamp. He pointed out where signatures had been cut and pasted, where dates had been overwritten. He said the mortgage transfers, once in my name, had been quietly reassigned to Seraphine. Twist S5 unfolded as I realized they'd been draining my rights piece by piece. Orion warned me. If they've already begun liquidating or moving assets, you must act. I swallowed residual shock. Then I need to remind them who paid the first deposit. He nodded. He drafted notary instructions, backup copies, off-record safekeeping. He showed me a page where Seraphine's signature appeared on documents she had no legal access to. That was Twist S6, the proof of forgery. It was precise, damning. He suggested pressing charges. I held my hand up. Not yet, I said. They don't deserve a courtroom. They deserve exposure. He looked at me, carefully measuring. I could see respect in his eyes. He knew I was learning restraint as power. I drove home through quiet streets, rain spitting on the windshield like subtle accusation. At home, my phone buzzed. A voicemail from my father. Heard you met with Caraway. Do not interfere in family business. I played it again, recording the audio on my phone. Silence echoed after his words. I slid into my chair and released a slow breath. They forgot I learned to build things that don't collapse. On my laptop, I opened a folder labeled Phase 1. Inside, scanned copies of every altered page, side-by-side comparisons, red highlights. The foundation of their lies laid bare. They built their lies on my foundation. I'll let it crumble under their feet. I arrived early. The kind of early that feels like trespassing. The air was heavy with the quiet of a house pretending to sleep. My shoes clicked against the marble hallway, the same floor I'd helped choose, down to the exact grain of stone. It sounded colder now. Rowena was waiting near the staircase. Her lips formed something between a greeting and a warning. You didn't call ahead. I didn't think I needed an appointment to see what I built, I said evenly. Seraphine appeared just behind her, silk and perfume trailing like armor. We weren't expecting company. I smiled faintly. I'm here for the property files you said you'd gather. They didn't move. I could feel the air tighten between us. I wasn't angry, not visibly. Anger gives them satisfaction. I was something quieter, something sharper. The library door creaked when I opened it. The scent of cedar still clung to the bookshelves, though the room looked rearranged, as if someone wanted to erase my fingerprints from its design. That's when Cassian stepped in. I hadn't expected him there. His tone was soft, not cruel, almost curious. You aren't the real owner, are you? The question cut the air in half. Seraphine blinked, then forced a laugh. Cassian, don't start that nonsense again. But Cassian didn't laugh. I looked at public records. The name listed isn't hers. My father shifted in his chair, throat tightening. Cassian, that's enough. No, Cassian said. It's not. Because if this woman is who I think she is, she's the reason this place is still standing. I looked at him. You're right. I built this house, this legacy, every line of it. You can't erase what's real with paperwork. The room went still. My mother glanced toward the hallway like she might escape. Seraphine's jaw stiffened, that careful smile slipping. You're making a scene, she said through her teeth. No, I said, calm as a closed door. You made the lie. A knock at the door broke the silence. Orion stepped in, carrying a heavy binder. He greeted no one but me. Madeleine, he said, I brought what you asked for. He laid the documents out across the table, my original signatures, the notarized deeds, time-stamped filings. Next to them, the falsified copies, Seraphine's versions, same layout, wrong dates, forged strokes. He slid the papers side by side. The truth was right there. Seraphine's voice cracked. You think I'd fake my own sister's name? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The silence said everything. Rowena looked pale. My father's hands trembled against the edge of his chair. For a moment I thought he might apologize, but pride is a heavy chain. He stayed quiet. Cassian stood straighter. Then let's make it plain, he said. Ladies and gentlemen, the rightful owner of this estate. The household staff had gathered in the doorway, housekeepers, gardeners, faces that had watched us grow up. Seraphine tried to speak, but her words tangled. This isn't over, she muttered, voice small. I took one step forward. No speech, no demand, just presence. My father's face turned red. He opened his mouth, closed it, then stared down at his hands like they belonged to someone else. That was enough for me. I turned toward the door. Madeleine, Seraphine called after me, voice cracking now. Wait, what do you want? I didn't turn around. Justice, I said quietly. Not apologies. The words hung there like smoke. I walked down the hall, past the portraits, past the years they'd tried to bury me under. In the foyer, I noticed something. The silk napkin I'd folded once, shaped like a bird for decoration. It was gone, replaced by something cheap and gold, like everything else they'd touched. If you erase me, I said under my breath, remember this. Nothing was invisible, only unrecognized. I stepped outside. The air had cooled again, the sky sinking toward dusk. The house stood behind me, silent, grand, and no longer mine to mourn. I watered the small fern by my window, a gesture of care I once extended to that estate, and now to this apartment. The soil was dry, the leaves drooping, but I coaxed them upright with steady hands. The pot reminded me, growth takes patience, even when no one acknowledges the effort. I resisted the urge to text Cassian, Orion, or anyone who might tip a hand too soon. Silence can be armor, not surrender. I remembered Dad saying years ago, let things settle, Maddie. At the time, I believed in pause. Now, I see it was control disguised as mercy. My chest tightened at the memory, but I forced it down. I needed my mind clear, for strategy, not for sorrow. A knock came. It startled me. I swallowed hard and opened the door. There stood Rowena, with Seraphine behind her. Their faces were composed, dresses stiff, eyes cautious. You didn't answer our calls, Rowena said, voice flat. I stepped aside. Come in, I said, not out of hospitality, out of authority. They entered the living room. Seraphine looked smaller than I remembered. We didn't know this would go this far, she said. I nodded toward the kitchen and began making coffee. The aroma swirled between us, heavy with unspoken things. Rowena sat, arms folded. You've grown cold, she began. You never return our texts. You've shut us out. Maybe that's why things fell apart. I let her speak, word by word. Inside, my skin tingled with restraint. When she paused, I looked at her calmly. Her face faltered. She hadn't expected silence. Then Seraphine broke. You think you're so clever, inviting Caraway, orchestrating this spectacle, to humiliate us publicly? I set my mug down and met her eyes. You're upset I exposed the lie, or upset I didn't pretend I didn't see it. She trembled. You were always the favorite, until we realized you'd never let anyone else matter. I took in her words. The room held its breath. My throat felt raw, but I stayed composed. If being the favorite meant covering up fraud, I said, then you're welcome to the title. The line landed. Silence fell like glass. Then Rowena leaned forward, voice low. We still control most of the property. We could cut you out completely if you push this too far. I sipped coffee, eyes steady on hers. You already did, I replied softly. You just used prettier words last time. She stared, white-knuckled. Then she threatened public scandal, said she could paint me as unstable, erratic, someone the towns would question. Under the table, I flicked my phone's record button. They didn't see me shift, but I heard her threats clearly, recorded them clean. They left after that. No dramatic exit, just a door shutting softly behind footsteps. No slam, no collapse. Once the hallway was empty, I closed the door. I uploaded the recording to an encrypted folder, labeled Rowena Threat 1. I sat at the desk, opened emails with Orion, drafted the next move. My lips pressed into a line. They mistook patience for passivity. That was their real miscalculation. I spoke aloud the thought that had been gathering beneath my steadiness. The quieter the resolve, the louder the outcome. The announcement surprised me. I stood among the neighbors and cameras at the estate's glade, watching as Rowena mounted the small platform. Her voice rang clear in the open air. By legal motion, from today forward, the Vale estate now belongs to Seraphine Vale. The words echoed across the trees. Smiles, flashbulbs, murmurs. Seraphine's face beamed triumphantly. My heart constricted, a sharp pain behind my ribs. I kept still. A guest beside me whispered, "Didn't Marisol restore this place?" I inhaled slow, tasting betrayal in the air. By midday, it sprawled across social media. Articles, hashtags, photo grids. Seraphine's name splashed like ink. Even friends in town sent sympathetic messages. One tapped me on the shoulder. "Are you sure this is right?" I met her gaze. "I never begged to be erased," I said quietly. Seraphine brushed past in the hall and murmured, "Mom told me you insisted you didn't want attention." She didn't expect me to reply. I watched faces shift, some with pity, others blank. Behind the glare of public spectacle, I felt an ember of clarity. That evening, back in my city office, my phone pinged. An anonymous email housed a scanned will, with my name struck out, replaced by Seraphine's. The metadata revealed edits made last month. I flipped through versions side by side, my binder and her forged document. The contrast was stark. This wasn't dispute. It was erasure. They tried to rewrite me out of existence. My lips trembled, but I held on. I forwarded the evidence to Orion, sealed and mark-protected. Vindication stung. Soon after, the phone rang. Seraphine's voice on the line. She proposed a public retraction in exchange for peace. I closed my eyes for a moment. "Peace built on lies is still war," I told her. She warned of legal battles, threats of lawsuit. I responded, calm but firm. "I have the documents now." The line ended, her desperate tone lingering in my ear. Distance stretched wider between us, me on one side, their world on the other. Late at night, I returned to the estate under darkness. The old library doors stood unlocked. My steps echoed across familiar shelves. In the hidden safe, I found what I hoped: original blueprints, deposit slips, letters from the surveyor signed by my father. They were roots they had tried to sever. I pressed them to my chest and packed them into a leather briefcase. The night air met me when I stepped outside. I stood in the driveway, looking back at the silhouette of the house. You can't burn down your foundation if you forgot I built it first. I woke before dawn, haunted by Rowena's threat echoing in my mind. The recording I made played back in slow loops, her voice calm, dangerous. I sat in the dim light of my study, shuffling documents, title deeds, original plans, copies of the forged will. Orion's confirmation rang through our last call. The evidence was solid, airtight. He warned Seraphine's legal team was preparing counterclaims. I straightened my back, cleared my throat. They've been rewriting my story. Today I reclaim the pen. By mid-morning, Orion stood beside me at the estate again, carrying a judge's injunction. We entered the business office. Staff stiffened, eyes flicked away. He read aloud: forgery, fraudulent transfers, documented threats. The air felt brittle. Seraphine's face froze. Rowena's lips parted to speak, then closed. She shot Orion a look. "You harbor betrayal." But he answered calmly, "I represent law and truth, not family loyalty." Murmurs rose among onlookers. The tide was shifting, subtly but unmistakably. At noon, the grand foyer bustled. Press gathered, neighbors whispered, and Cassian appeared. He climbed the steps, voice loud. As someone who worked on the property for decades, I can confirm the real owner is Madeleine Vale. Cameras flashed. Seraphine gasped. Rowena turned pale. Cassian laid out invoices, design credits, trust deeds I had drafted and funded. The room trembled under it all. I stood motionless, letting the room erupt. Some clapped, some gaped, others scowled, relieved, vindicated, even shocked. I felt every shade at once. Seraphine lunged, anger spilling over. She accused me of manipulating Caraway, of using this moment to shame her. I raised a hand. I didn't need to manufacture truth. I only needed to unfold it. Her face twisted. She stuttered, unable to find stronger words. Rowena tried soothing her. Too late. The staff shifted. Some quietly side with me. Others avert their eyes. The fractures in their control grew wider with each word left unsaid. After the crowd thinned, Cassian stayed and nodded at me. I walked through the rooms I built, walls, windows, halls, as if seeing them for the first time. On a side table lay the silk napkin I folded once into a bird. It's beneath my glass now, bright in the lights. I picked it up, inhaled its faint scent. A quiet echo returning home. With steady steps, I left the hall. I walked out of their playhouse, not as an intruder, but as its rightful heir. The change was unmistakable by late afternoon. Word of Cassian's declaration had swept the town, and the estate pulsed with tension. Cameras lined the walkway, neighbors gathered near hedges. Inside the grand foyer, whispers clung to every corner. I walked forward, steady, absorbing every wary glance. Seraphine greeted me with a pale smile, uncertain, fragile. Her composure cracked behind the courteous nod, her lips trembled. I kept my face calm, no triumph, no celebration, just presence. The air felt taut, electric, as if everyone waited for something to break. Then it did. In the middle of a hushed lull, Seraphine stepped forward, her voice wavered. "You've dragged shame into our name," she said. "Now everyone sees our flaws." Her anger slipped into desperation. Tears ran down her cheeks. She stumbled through threats about family, legacy, betrayal. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some turned away. Some blinked. Her collapse wasn't just tears. It was the unraveling of her public illusion. She fell away from her mask, naked in emotion. I stood silent. The moment was not mine to move, just to witness. From the side, Alaric walked forward, his shoulders slack, his eyes wide. "Sis," he said, voice low, "if you forgive me, I'll go with you. I'll give up my stake." He spoke about debts, fears of losing the home, of letting them win. He offered his claim, support. My heart twisted. He had tried in his own way, but I couldn't accept his offer. "I never wanted your share," I said. "I wanted my name back." His face drained. He nodded, hurt, silent. He stepped back into the shadow. The crowd watched in uncertain silence. That boundary needed drawing. The gathering began to dissolve. Seraphine was led inside, sobbing behind closed doors. Rowena froze, lips parted, unsure how to speak next. I walked through empty halls, silent witnesses of every plan, every betrayal. Guests' voices murmured behind doors. "She's finally stopped hiding." It was time. I stopped at the library doorway, my sanctuary once turned battlefield. I touched its wood. They wanted me quiet, I thought. Now they see the quiet is louder. In the garden, as dusk deepened, Cassian found me. He offered no words, just a nod, respect. I didn't lean on him. I stood tall. He said softly, "You stood when most would bend." I smiled, quietly. Some foundations aren't built for bending. He stepped away, leaving me in the fading light, gazing at the house, the silhouette of a legacy reclaimed. I didn't return to war. I returned to belong.